Welcome to Frog Talk, an Auction Frogs podcast series all about events and fundraising in a post-2020 world. For more information on Auction Frogs and the services we offer, visit auctionfrogs.org today.
Welcome to another edition of Frog Talk, your leap into fundraising. I'm Corey Michaels, and today joined by Dave, the GM of Eagle Hills Golf Course, and Mike Hansen, golfer, volunteer, and just all-around fundraising stud. Does that work for a...
That sounded
okay.
Amazing.
We'll go with that.
Can we get a business card with that on that? That would sound really good.
So today, obviously, we're going to talk about golf, the practices of golf tournaments, and how things have kind of changed and evolved, and really some really good things that have come out in this last year, and things that I think have been good additions to golf tournaments. So first of all, guys, thanks very much for coming in with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So, Dave, what have you seen, and what were you thinking last year when when the pandemic first started and everything was coming down to where didn't really know what we were able to do and not able to do? How were you feeling as GM of my favorite golf course in the area?
It was initially quite intimidating.
Yeah.
Not knowing, we had a lot of immediate fallout with some of the bigger groups that just have larger national affiliations and stuff. They were immediately done and just bagged it for the entire year. And then as we progressed through, we started getting some interest as long as we made some changes. We eliminated certain facets that helped control gathering sizes and groups, and it worked out. But it was definitely at the start quite intimidating and nerve-wracking. Mm-hmm. So,
now, what were some of the changes, initial changes that you were able to make?
The biggest thing was with the mandates on the group sizes. Mm-hmm. We had to go predominantly in these fundraising events, historically anyway. It's a shotgun start. Everybody shows up at the same time. It's a big party.
Right.
Everybody goes out. And in order to mitigate some of those gathering issues that came down, from the local and state authorities, we basically went to a tee time start, like a traditional golf start. Mm-hmm. And then for the larger groups, we would do that, but we would split it. We'd go off 1 and 10 at the same time. So we'd only have, between 4 and 20 golfers showing up, being in an area at one time, being outside, out front for the check-in and registration process. And then subsequently, as we did that into the larger groups and we got up, would do all day things and get, some of these other organizations that would have 150 people and it would take 8 hours to do, but they still got the turnout they wanted, albeit just a little differently. But the fundraising for some of these groups didn't change much at all, which was really good.
Yeah. And I've heard from a lot of friends that are golfers and have played in some of the tournaments this last year, and they actually liked the change in, no, they missed the big party at the starting,
sure.
But as far as gameplay and all of that, they actually liked the way that the changes went for the actual game.
It was certainly it expedited the pace of play.
Mm-hmm.
From a registration check-in perspective, it definitely gave the organizers more face time with the individual.
Right.
And then it eliminated some of the, what's the right word? It made it just slightly less of a party. And I know that sounds not as cool, but it definitely actually helped some of these organizations with some of their goals at these events, I think.
Right.
And there was a number of events that even now in this year where we are under the impression that we're going to be able to do the shotgun starts, and as long as we keep things outside and take certain measures, some of these groups still want to stay in that COVID format, if you will,
right,
moving forward, because they felt it generated better for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, Hannah, you've helped to organize lots of charity golf tournaments, obviously played in a lot. What were some of the changes that you've liked through this and that you've seen maybe in some of the games and those type of things, the extracurricular, fundraising enhancers along the way?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I'm also really stubborn and stuck in my ways. So, when we had originally set up the tournament that we were doing last year with Dave, I was very skeptical. And, my biggest concern is, you when you're helping out an organization, every year you want to do better. Every year you want to make more. Every year you want to bring more to the event. And I was really, really worried about it. But, after going through that event that we participated in, and I've been in a couple others, like what Dave just had commented on, I really can't see myself going back. Like, I really love that format. I think one of the major advantages that you have is when you show up to the event, you really have concentrated time with those people. Dave said it earlier, we got 150 people all there. It's a mess. It is a mess. And you're trying to do what you can to grab a little bit out of what everybody you can and try to get the most out of the event. But now you've got really concentrated help. And to be honest with you, the experience more feels like a little bit like a VIP experience. You show up, there's only a couple small people there. Everybody's concentrating on you. You feel like you really get a little bit more conversation with everybody there, and then feel like you have gotten a feel for what's going on. So for me, I really like that. And then I think, it changed some of the stuff that we were doing when it came to auction items and the silent auction and some of the raffles and stuff. And, I only myself participated in the one that we really helped out with. So I only saw the dramatic impact that these changes had on that. But I have to assume that the other organizations were seeing the same results too as well.
And now, what about for the after gathering? What had to happen with that, and what does it look like, moving forward? It used to be, if we had the early morning start, it was a lunch, everyone get together and, do some goofy stuff to win some prizes and all of that. How has that been impacted, and how will it be impacted, do you feel?
I think last year especially, it was that portion of it, or that component, was essentially non-existent.
Right. Okay.
It was a lot of box lunch service to people as they're making the turn. We encourage people to kind of participate in the auction items and the raffles before, during, and after, but not to loiter too long. I'm hopeful that moving forward this year, we can return to some sense of that normal post-event idea. Right now, if we had to host a tournament today, there's still a cap, I believe, on at 50.
I think so.
But the Central District Health is letting us apply for exceptions, and there's certain criteria you can meet, and they'll review it and approve it. And I believe I'd have to check with somebody on the staff at the golf course, but I'm pretty sure we have a wedding coming up that did successfully apply and meet those conditions. I think we'd be able to do that, and we will be able to do that moving forward this year, simply because 90% of these tournaments, everything's outside afterward.
Right.
It doesn't put us in a jam where you're sticking people in a room.
Well, and luckily you have that great outside area where most all of that always happened.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yes.
Right there by
very
the driving
seldom
range.
we have. I think we only had 2 tournaments in 2019 that put 140, 150 people inside our banquet facility and the seaters there, versus being outside in one of the pavilions. It's common. It makes more sense for a golf tournament. So.
Now, what about some of the revenue enhancers that you had seen or thought about, as far as some of the games during the actual tournament? Did it affect a lot of those?
So, yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff like you saw a lot of hesitancy for people to sell licorice rope, for the gimme strings, or not a lot of. We didn't actually have any food and beverage distribution on holes this year. We typically, on some of these larger events, you'll have people that want to sponsor a hole, and they'll go out there and they'll have candy and a cornhole game and drink and Gatorades or drinks or whatever they want to do. We didn't do any of that this year, but I think moving forward, I don't know how much of an impact that has to the fundraising intent of the event, but I definitely think it's easier to sell a whole sponsorship or a manned whole sponsorship from an organizer's perspective to somebody if you tell them, yes, you can be there. Yes, you can play the giant dice game. Yes, you can make them hit with a left-handed hockey stick. All the fun stuff that you see historically. Right. I think it probably makes it a little easier, and I'm hopeful to see it back to a certain degree.
Gimme string as licorice. That's a bad idea. That's a epically bad idea.
I've make that mistake.
The reality is when it comes to that, everybody's going to cheat anyways. So at least if they're eating licorice rope while they're doing it, they feel a little bit better because they paid for them. They paid for it. So.
No, Andy, what advice would you give, to a group that was wanting to put together a golf tournament and maybe they bypassed 2020 and said, okay, we're just going to wait this out. What would you tell them now?
I mean, I wouldn't hesitate. I mean, there's no reason to do it. I mean, even with 2020, I mean, the tournament that we did, it was the most successful tournament we had in history. And again, I think, a little bit came with the fact that a lot of people hadn't been doing much. And this was a chance for them to go out and do something. And, with Dave's amazing organization of everything and, the transparency that we had with everybody, we informed everybody. Like that was the one thing that I was the biggest concern about is I didn't want someone showing up thinking it was a lot different than it was. So, Dave got a good schedule together. We had the calendar out. We had reached out to everybody to make sure they all knew their tee times, what time they could arrive, how everything all looked, what would be available, how it, so they could see it, smell it, and taste it even before they got there. But for us, I think that after the event was done, I didn't really miss that. I mean, when you go back to looking at tournaments, if you have 25 or 40 teams there, you got a lot of people that actually just want to get to the golf and get out of there.
Right.
A lot of the major sponsors will send their favorite employee or their manager or some people like that, or maybe somebody and some clients. And, so I think no matter what, you're still going to have a little bit of a big group of people that probably are going to leave anyways. And, my biggest thing with, especially with Dave or anyone else we ever work with, there's a lot of waste at the end, right? You pay for 130 meals and 60 of them have been eaten. This allowed us to avoid that. And so we were able to shore up some of the stuff that people got when they arrived to make up for the value of the tournament. And, with the box lunches and everything we did, when we finished it up, everybody really felt that it was a way better experience. And then when you look at, getting the most out of things, you've just got to make sure that you align yourself with some people that really understand golf because, it's still a golf tournament. There's people there that care about golf. I go to win. I'm not lying to you. That's my plan. And, there's people that care about the traditions of golf and the sport. And then, then it's all about experience from there. And then from there, it's how do you get the most out of each person that's at the event? And I mean, really, it comes down to figuring out each head's worth this much to an event per se and, dollars for that event. How can we make it the best experience and get the most value out of each person?
Well, and you have the full gamut because you have hackers like me that are just going out for the social and hope for that one good hit of the round, that I can usually eke out and, and just there for that experience. And then you have the guys that are really in it to win and everything in between. But the bottom line is that everyone has fun, has a great experience, and that the most amount of money is raised for the cause as possible. Now, Hanny, from the volunteer standpoint of organizing and working your tail off to get this great experience for all the golfers, but also keeping in mind this is a fundraiser. And so you're trying to raise the most amount of money possible. What advice would you give for finding sponsors, getting whole sponsors, overall sponsors, all of your items for the silent auction, all of that? That just seems like it's so daunting. And I know for a lot of organizations, they feel like it is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, the way I look at it is it's, when I'm helping out with it, I really look like I'm now on the board and like, this is us running a business. You have to look at it in that capacity. And, when we talked a little bit earlier, we talked about bringing value to the golfer. We need to make sure that whatever they spent on that day, when they leave that day, they felt like they've got their values worth. That's the first and foremost part of it. But for me, I look at, all right, what does the event look like? And then we sit there and say, okay, how many teams do we need to make this a great event, business-wise, income-wise? And then we also look at, with us, for my events, I like to run a little bit less teams because pace of play is what's most important to me. But after I look at it, saying, okay, we need 22 teams, I basically look at everybody that we have that we're involved with, let's fill those teams right away. Because if you ultimately looking at that, if you do fill it out, At that point, you're going to break even or be almost close to even.
Right.
And then everything brought in that day is going to bring you up to that. And so when I first started doing these, I mean, in 04, 05, 06, I can't remember, that was the plan. And then from there, you look at whole sponsors, okay? Because the situation that we have is if you get 18 or 20 or 25 or 36 whole sponsors, you now have brought serious value to that event because right off the top that you have that kind of money that's going in. So with the groups that I bring in and the people that I work with, really try to reach out to everybody I know. I think each and every one of us knows people that just like to be involved. There's a lot of people that are very into giving to charity. There's very people that, do a lot of different things. So we look for those people and then look at people who, where would they get some serious value that day out of being there and being around people? We're talking COVID, pre-COVID, where we're at right now. But you want to make sure that they're feeling that they get some value for it. And for us, we make that experience a little bit better. We make a printed sign. I definitely make sure that I get whoever got that sponsor to take a picture of it and send it to that person today so that they actually saw it got done. When I ran the Junior Steelheads program, we used to have all the kids sign each sign, and then we brought it back to the sponsor.
That's cool. I like that.
I remember still, I can go into businesses today of people I know who still have those up on the wall in their office. So you've got to make that sponsorship side of it to have value. And we've got to make everything all fair so everyone feels like they're getting the most out of it. When it comes to prizes, I really would lean on, people that and then getting referrals and getting introductions to other stuff. For me, I like getting the silent auction shored up the best that I possibly can, knowing that having really good people at the event that we're probably going to get a lot more money out of it. And then from there, getting prizes and setting up a raffle. I joke all the time when I get right near the end, because to me, it's like I'm on a shopping trip, right? Like what goes here, what goes there, what are we doing? And I literally squeeze out each situation so that I know that we're going to get the most value out of it. My recommendation on raffles that day is have some big shiny stuff, right? I mean, a big, huge bag, a golf bag for a lot of people, like, no one's going to go buy a new golf bag, but if they want a new golf bag,
heck yeah,
it's going to be a pretty cool day. So have some big shiny stuff, try to limit it to it. I have a lot of math. I'm not going to go into the math on that stuff because, people like Auction Frogs and everyone else will help with that. And then people organizing will. But, I figure out what can I get out of each person and then what would they spend and where are we going to get on things. And, you want to have items proportionate to that amount. And the auction items, you want to work to your crowd. People here are really into sports, the college team here in town and some of the other stuff. So experiences go for more now versus items. So trying to find some really cool things that maybe somebody else can't go do, you're going to get a little more value out of it. And, for myself, I like to try to get a lot of sports items, and I donate a lot of sports items myself to other organizations when they're doing events because people are really into that.
Right. Now, what about your swag bags at the starting?
Yeah, we do a big mix of a whole bunch of different stuff. I'm a big fan of the swag bag because, you show up, you get checked in. People take a lot of money from you because you're getting all kinds of different stuff. And then you feel like, okay, and then you look in there. So I like making sure that it has some value. For us, last year, we made a change of doing the boxed lunch, taking the big meal away. So instead of us changing the price, we just ended up getting some Pro V1 golf balls and some other stuff to make it really, really cool that day. My biggest advice is don't go chintzy on that stuff. If something's going to be $3 or $4 more, do it. I'm not saying that a Pro V1 is the best golf ball in the world over whatever. But a majority of the people at that event, to them, oh my God, I got Pro V1 golf balls. A lot of those people, just like yourself, might not even go buy those because you don't want to spend it.
You don't want to lose it.
You don't want to lose it, right? But like you show up and you get that, that does that experience. And I always say it, people are humans calculators, right? Go to the event, we pay this much money. Dave's golf course and a cart would be worth that much. This meal is worth that much. This was worth that much. You got to make sure that value is there. And, we haven't changed a lot of our prices, but we're making the experience a lot different. And we're finding ways to get a lot more money out of, all the different things going on too as well.
Now, Dave, for obviously Eagle Hills, a crown jewel for the Treasure Valley in Idaho of golf courses. But for someone who's listening outside the area, in another state, heck, in another country right now. What just kind of general practices would you tell them to think about as they're thinking about doing a golf tournament?
Obviously, state and municipal guidelines are key, only because they vary.
Right.
Even so much
state
as from
to state,
Eagle
county to
from
county.
Eagle to Boise. I
Yeah.
mean, the Eagles mayor and Boise's mayor are different, so we deal with two different schools of thought there. But follow those and organization. And I think the key thing for us was we did a really good job staying ahead of it. My wife Christy had a really good idea with how to maintain these. And then Kyle Weeks, our head professional, and George Miller, our food and beverage guy, they kind of, I mean, I get to come here and talk about it, but they did the work,
Yeah.
And then when you add in a company like Auction Frogs, what they did and what they were able to help facilitate from an organizational perspective, makes it essentially turnkey. So I don't think there should be any apprehension in doing it, as long as you're organized. I'm not saying that every group has to run out and hire an outside consulting service or come to Eagle Hills Golf Course, but we really, the organization made a huge difference this year with being prepared, like Hanny alluded to, and over communicating and making sure that everything was curated directly to the customer when they arrived, from the moment they got there, interacted, and then out onto the course. I think it worked really well.
Now, if someone is here in the local area and wanting to do it, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So the best thing to do would be call the golf course. You can reach out to us directly out there. Kyle Weeks is our PGA director of golf. He does a lot of that stuff, and he's incredibly well versed with the computer side of things, as I like to call it, because that's not my forte. But
Right.
he really did help a lot with the organization this year, and the using the software that we use to run it. Or reach out to Auction Frogs, because we do a lot of work with them, and I know they work a lot of other places as well, but they're a joy to work with too. So it makes it really easy to work with people that are beyond competent and overly effective at what they do.
Well, Hanny, Dave, thank you so much for taking some time here to be on Frog Talk.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Frog Talk, an Auction Frogs podcast series all about events and fundraising in a post-2020 world. For more information on Auction Frogs and the services we offer, visit auctionfrogs.org today.